Hey YouTube, I know these are weird times, but I figured I'd show you what it looks like from my garden. It's the beginning of, I think, the 5th year. It's 2020. But yeah, let's walk around. So far it's March 24th, and I've been putting a lot of greens in, a lot of spinaches, a lot of kales, a few beets, a few Swiss chards, but the season's still really early, but I think the garden is set up to be really good this year. So I'll flip the camera around so we can see better, and I'll show you what I've done. So one thing you may notice is that there's a lot of different trellises. I still have the same trellis that I had last year. The honeysuckle boughs up top have kind of fallen down, but I figure that's more stable anyway. So it's there. I did add a little bit of chicken wire on both sides to hopefully help the peas climb up it. The beds, I have chickens this year, so I've been putting some of the bedding on the annual beds, and we might see just a little bit of spinach coming up now. No, that's something else. That's a Virginia waterleaf. But I noticed some over here. Here you can see some of the first little spinach sprouts coming up. I seeded those maybe a week or a week and a half ago. Here's one of the new trellises. This one is sort of hodgepodge, sort of all the branches I had left over. More of a wild theme to it, compared to this one over here, somewhere in between. It's got more of the conventional cross thatch and then a bit of just a whole chicken wire wall on this side, which I think should be good for small vining crops. But yeah, the garden's looking really good. That honeyberry, I'll show you in a second, over there is starting to open up. This is a new trellis I've got going. There's a few branches I just stuck in it for the time being. It's okay. I mean, a lot of these trellises are, you know, I put them up this year. We'll see how they work. I'm not totally wedded to their style or location. I do have this sort of monstrosity. I got a really good deal on the wire. It was on half price at Lowe's because it was a little bit damaged from last year. And I reused the poles that I built the mosquito house with last year. And I think I might actually close this off entirely and try to go corn, safe from the raccoons, because raccoons eat all the corn in the garden. Or I've got Chinese yam and Apios americana, so groundnut, coming, and so I might grow those up this trellis. But yeah, it's very substantial trellis, probably the most, you know, conventional, a lot of embodied energy. All of the trees seem to have made it through okay. The currants look good. Yeah, it's just right before things start really popping that I figured I'd show you. You can't see, but I've seeded out several rows. Not in all the annual beds, but here's the honeyberry. Now it's just about to open up, so that's cool. I've got a couple others here. But yeah, just a quick video, and hopefully I'll have more videos to post soon. So, stay well. Hey YouTube, I'm in the garden. It's kind of a cold day in spring. It's April 4th, I believe. Early April for sure. And we're getting some freezing drizzle, which is mostly good because the last couple days have been really sunny and nice, and the sprouts are really starting to come through. But we needed some moisture because the city water hasn't been turned on yet, and I was afraid that a couple more days of that nice sunny weather would dry out the subsurface just too much for the sprouts. So we're getting some kind of freezing drizzle, which is I guess not really unexpected. Our last frost date's about 6 weeks from now for a typical year. So this is pretty normal, but the garden has been going really well. It doesn't look the most impressive right now, but I've added a lot of mulch and some compost and some chicken bedding from my chickens this last winter, and things are starting to wake up quite a bit. So you can see the strawberries down here are starting to wake up. The buds of the honeyberries and the aronia berries and the currants are all opening up, and the flower petals of the plum trees are starting to swell, but importantly not open yet. Same thing with this peach tree. The buds are starting to open up, and I think there are flower buds. So hopefully this ice acts as a casing around all the buds and protects them, and it doesn't look like it's going to be a really hard freeze. I think the low for tonight is like 27 or something. So it should be totally fine for the plants that have come up so far. But yeah, I have a lot of new trellises. Behind me I built this new cage structure out of the bones of what was the mosquito house last year. So I'm trying some Apios americana and also some Chinese yam, which I know is a little bit controversial, but in a year of a pandemic, I have been trying to prioritize, or at least like give more consideration to calories in the garden, because I think this garden has been really good about providing nutrition. Greens, like the freshest greens you can get, or at least very, very fresh greens that you can come pick anytime and eat in just a couple minutes after. So that's really nice, and a lot of the berries and fruits that are coming on provide a lot of nice nutrition, but not a ton of calories. I mean, fruit in abundance can be fermented, and that's, you know, quite a bit of carbohydrates that last a long time. But really, I planted some potatoes so far. At home, I'm working on starting some slips of sweet potatoes, although it's from a conventional grocery store, so I'm not sure if the sweet potatoes have been treated. Worst case scenario, hopefully I can still go to a greenhouse and buy some slips. But in addition to that, the Appios americana and the Chinese yam should provide some more tubers. Now, this winter I actually ordered 125 chestnuts of different kinds and a few hazelnuts. So obviously those aren't going to be very much help this year, but in the future at various properties, people I know, I'll be kind of just putting around. So hopefully we have a more reliable source of carbohydrates in a perennial way. But it's something to think about in an uncertain world. How do you provide food in a robust way, but not just, you know, not just the salad garnish, also some calories. So some thoughts, and I'll be happy to share more of the garden as it starts really opening up, and hopefully it looks like the next week is going to be a lot warmer. So yeah, I might, I'll flip it around and so I can show you the beds and see what they look like, and that's the update as of today. So here's one of the first, so the gate's over there. This is one of the first annual beds. There's various rows of spinach on the left-hand side. There's some really small sprouts that I'm not sure if it's something I sprouted or if it's weed seed. So like here and there it's like spinach. I'm not entirely sure what that is. There's a bit of clover, a bit of strawberries. And the other side, I think it's arugula and kale that I planted, not totally sure. I've tried to formalize more of my walking onion beds. So you can see, like here's a line I put in, there's a line I put in. There's several more throughout the garden. I think I'm up to 5 or 6 lines. Because I typically do more, like here's a good example. Over by this plum tree, I do more like just sticking in walking onions as I see fit throughout the season. And that's good, but I wanted to give a better sense of just how many I had at this point. So they're still kind of distributed throughout. I mean, there's a couple back there that you can't really see, and one over there, and a few here. But in addition to that, I'm trying to formalize some lines. So there's some buried persimmon seeds that I saved from a tree this past winter. There's a line of potatoes, kind of a, should take over next to like where the kales are, more onions. A lot of spinaches in here. I think there's some more kales planted in here. Prairie beds starting to come along. A couple of changes. I took out a wooden stump that I had there that was my hose directing tool, I guess, and I put in this willow tree, which is just so great for butterflies and caterpillars and native insects. It's a native variety of willow for Iowa, and there's so many insects that I've seen on it. In terms of galls this year, and there's a little caterpillar cocoon at the bottom, but also last year, just things feeding on it. I think it's a really important wildlife plant, especially for invertebrates. So the prairie bed's starting to wake up. You can see a little flower down there starting to poke up. Some good spinach sowed in here, kale over there, line of onions, various other things. And I've been staggering the planting at different times. So some of the sprouts are up, some are still coming up. Here's another, like this whole area in here has been planted out to various greens. About 3/4 of this has been planted out. I have some sea kale actually planted in here, so I'm hoping that comes up. Overall, things are starting to perk up, and the strawberries and the walking onions and the couple plants of garlic that I put in, and the bags are kind of ugly, but those are what I brought. The potting mix I made, coconut coir, vermiculite, and worm castings. So I just used that. I'm probably gonna try to pick up some trash in this forest because there's quite a bit of debris in it. And yeah, this apricot tree was new last year, so that's been put in. I established a strawberry bed in here with 2 rhubarbs. So rhubarb here, and then this is a new bed of strawberry that I transplanted in. Didn't buy any plants, just kind of used the ones that were poking out in places they shouldn't be. This honeyberry is just about to flower. So actually you can see a couple flowers are actually open. There's one there. Hopefully, I mean, it's a very cold hardy plant, so I think this should be totally fine for it. And there's several others. I was able to propagate. So this is a honeyberry I propagated. There's one small one there. Some unknowledgeable person in the garden pulled up this honeyberry here. It was half dead when I pulled it up a couple days ago. But it still had some living buds on it and had a developed root system. So hopefully I can salvage it. But someone must have pulled it up from their garden not knowing what it was. So it's a shame, but you know, I'll take it. Hopefully it survives. And we'll keep getting more different kinds of honeyberries because I think they're great. And the currants, mostly over there, but I'm starting to put them in other places. For example, here's a currant. I pulled out a stump that was defining the edge of the bed, and now I have a currant defining, I think this is a red currant, defining the edge of the bed. That's one I propagated. The apple trees here. The pear tree that I thought had died last year is actually showing signs of life. You can see the buds just starting to open up. So that's exciting. I'm happy that it pulled through. The apricot tree should do well. This apple tree should hopefully do well. It's starting to get pretty big. It's, I don't know, 4th or 5th year. I think it's 5th year. I think I put it in the 1st year. We can see sort of, so 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So yeah, this will be its 5th year. So hopefully it produces some apples. That'd be nice. The currants over here doing great. And yeah, that's kind of the sense of things, just kind of a interesting weather event at this early springtime. So hope you liked the video, and I'll hopefully post more soon.